Our next panel is Federal Strategies for Quantum Technology. It is my pleasure to introduce Adam Black, Section Head of Quantum Optics with the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, Dr. Michael Hayduk, Deputy Director at Air Force Research, Dr. James Kushmerick, Director of Physical Measurement Laboratory at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and Gretchen Campbell, Associate Vice President for Quantum Research and Education at the University of Maryland.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session. I'm really excited to be here moderating today with, some folks that I have considered colleagues for a very long time. So very much look forward to having this discussion about federal strategies. Given that this session is federal strategies, not surprisingly, I'd love to start by hearing a little bit about the federal strategies for your agencies. We've heard a quick introduction for all of you, but to start with, I would love to hear a little bit more about the roles that you are each playing at your agencies. And in particular, I'd like to hear about how is your agency approaching quantum technology, what are their priorities, and are those priorities evolving as time goes on? So to start with, I'll pick on Jim first, since he's right next to me, and sort of go down the line.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm pleasure to be here. Jim Kushmerick, I'm the Director of the Physical Measurement Laboratory at NIST. Our main priority at NIST is making good measurements. I mean, that's our core function, is to set the standards, to make, measurements of units and different quantities. And because precision measurements or quantum measurements, we were very early into the quantum game. So that's kind of the background on where we come from. Really, for our priorities, quantum has been a priority at NIST for over 20 years. I mean, we've had a formal program for over 20 years in quantum information science. And it has evolved, but really we're trying to maintain the balance of having core, fundamental, foundational research to kind of come up with better developments, new technologies. But also, we're at an inflection point, I would say. And how can we really start to accelerate the transition of some of these technologies out of our laboratory into industry, into wherever it's going to go. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't remember what other parts you said I was supposed to say.
Did you cover your role in the agency?
The what?
Oh, you did. You covered your role in the agency.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, love to hear from you.
Well, thank you to the organizers for the invite to be on this panel today. It's great to be here again this year. So I am the Deputy Director at the Air Force Research Laboratory, Information Director up in Rome, New York. A little bit about AFRL. We're science and technology R&D arm of the United States Air Force, so it includes both Air Force and Space Force. Our quantum strategy plays into both parts of that. It's a large organization spread out over many geographic sites, about 11,000 total employees, counting government, military, and our on-site contractors. Spread out 10 technology directorates. 6 of those directorates have active research programs in quantum information science. We cover 4 key pillars as our strategy, which we stood up in 2018, and we've continued to stay true to the strategy. We've morphed it as we've gone along, but I think we've really keyed in on 4 key tech areas, which are no big surprise: timing, sensing, computing, and networking, with active areas in all of those. And then, as Jim said, one of the things we really are looking at, and we'll probably get more into this, is the transition piece, really going from lab out to the field, in our case for the Air Force, and really looking at how we can continue to do the R&D, of course, but moving from the 4x8 optical tables out into something that can be ruggedized and produced and maintained out in the field. So we're really gearing a lot of experiments towards that, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that, especially with our networking experiments throughout the panel today.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And finally, Adam.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Adam Black. I lead the quantum optics section at the Naval Research Laboratory. And for those who don't know, NRL is the Navy's full-spectrum corporate research laboratory. So we do research aimed at Navy applications, basically from the seafloor to outer space, in basic applied research and advanced technology development. So in quantum, NRL was designated as the Navy's Quantum Information Research Center, just as AFRL is for the Air Force. And we have quantum research activities kind of across many different research divisions at NRL. I'm in optical sciences, but electronic sciences and technology division, materials, and so on. We're beginning to sort of move those different disparate research activities under sort of a single umbrella of a Quantum Science Institute that's been formalized just this year, I believe. And we also run the Navy's Quantum Computing Program Office that coordinates Navy access to private industry quantum computing resources. That's actually done through a partnership originally created by AFRL. In terms of priorities, I think that the basic list of priorities is similar, right? Sensing in particular, position, navigation, timekeeping, networking, secure communications, and we have a lot of work on algorithms for quantum computing. In recent years, there's been an increased emphasis on those applications that can be achieved in sort of the relatively near time frame, while never giving up on the foundation of basic research. And I think there's also been an increased emphasis on the interdisciplinary nature of quantum research, focusing on things like nanophotonics and microelectronics that are needed as supporting technologies for quantum systems.
Great, no, thanks, Adam. So yeah, I think you all sort of touched on the fact that you're looking at increasingly on translation, from your agencies to your customer, whoever that customer might be. Talked a little bit about the interdisciplinary nature. Something I would be interested in hearing about is, who do your agencies see as the most important partners? And not only domestic stakeholders that you see as important partners for your agencies, but given that this conference is very international, right? We have folks from many different sectors, many different countries. Would also be interested in hearing if international collaboration plays a role in those partnerships. So would love to hear about who you guys are partnering with. What do you see as the value of that?
I'll start.
Sure, I'll start with you, Jim.
Yeah, well, it's definitely an international endeavor. I mean, we can't go it alone. Nobody has all the resources, all the good ideas, all the capabilities. So I think working with like-minded nations to develop an ecosystem is critical. NIST, as one of the functions of NIST, is the National Metrology Institute for the United States. And because of that, we have to coordinate around the globe for measurements. So we already have an international presence, and we have worked in this way, as long as I've been there 20-some years. And in fact, I just looked it up to see, about 15 to 20% of my staff are foreign nationals. These are guest researchers who are working shoulder to shoulder with federal employees and domestic guest researchers. So bringing in talent is key for us. And that's something that we're really kind of, has been an enabler, I would say, for NIST to kind of deliver on its mission. Key partners, well, the American taxpayer is our main stakeholder, if you will, but really kind of providing innovation and economic competitiveness. So supporting industry is our primary kind of mission, being in the Department of Commerce. So we've been working with a lot of industry. Some of the companies you heard about this morning have their roots back to NIST. So they weren't necessarily spin-outs, but they kind of tie back. But really to get back to what we all mentioned about, how do we transition, it's a new era maybe of public-private partnerships. Co-development is a term that is people like these days. And how can we partner? We don't want to manufacture things, plain and simple. But we have a lot of capabilities, we have ideas, we have ways to help industry. How do we effectively partner to kind of push, industry forward to kind of create this? And that's something that we're really working on. So it's suppliers, cryo companies, control electronics, all the way up to like the full stack kind of companies. These are places we've been interacting with.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Yeah, a lot of very similar points there. For the Air Force, obviously, our goal is to deliver technologies and capabilities, really capabilities for the Air Force and things we can't do right now, or really moving in terms of revolutionary capabilities that ultimately we see quantum being able to deliver. So partnerships are key. The theme, certainly we can't go at it alone, very critical for us. So certainly partnering with the tri-services, the Army and Navy, as well as other government agencies, very key for us. Many mechanisms internationally to partner. One of my favorite slides is our logo slide, right? So it shows not only maybe our suppliers that are critical to us, but some of our international partners, whether it's nations through project agreements that we're formally partnering with, or international CRADAs, cooperative research and development agreements with international companies or universities, or through our basic research arm, which is Air Force Office of Scientific Research, we have 5 international offices spread out across the world that primarily fund universities, and then as those ideas mature, we're able to pretty much pull them into, formalize them more into research programs within AFRL. One of the things we always point to, PsiQuantum, we had some early funding with Bristol University, same with Orca Computing, which then kind of provided the seeds to then really drive the industry in terms of capabilities in quantum computing. But certainly that's the international piece. Domestically, many ways to partner with AFRL, whether it's through contracts or grants or domestic CRADAs, those cooperative research and development agreements where we both bring something to the table. And then finally, our Innovari Advancement Center, which we created 2020, is a really unique way within the Air Force where we're outside our security perimeter, where we can actually work with international partners, non-traditional partners, small businesses, those that traditionally have trouble or not as easily able to partner with us. But we have lab set up, state-of-the-art quantum labs as an example. The facility is not unique to quantum, but a heavy emphasis on quantum where we work with, as I said, our partners side by side, working primarily in Rome, our networking technologies, as well as some algorithm development for quantum computing. So it's been a huge success for us, a big driver for us as we look to really develop talent and develop workforce.
Great, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and so that for the main partners for the Naval Research Laboratory are our customers. Of course, we're a working capital organization, meaning that we're not funded by appropriations. We're actually funded by customers. Our biggest customer is the U.S. Navy. So our partners in that are the sailors and Marines whose jobs we hope to make easier and safer by doing research and giving them new capabilities. And what that means concretely for us is that we need to make sure that we're aware of capability gaps and opportunities, and they're aware that the operational side of the Navy is aware of new technologies coming down the pipeline, and that applies to all of our different customers as well. We also partner with academia and industry through CRADAs, as Mike mentioned. We partner with government through a variety of different collaborations, such as the Washington Metropolitan Quantum Networking Research Consortium that we're a part of, along with the other government agencies as well. In addition to creating formal partnerships, we also do a lot of partnering with academia and industry through government research programs where we're providing subject matter expertise, and I know the other labs, it's true as well. We provide a lot of support through those programs through analysis, technical advice, modeling, and so on, and make sure there's sort of a technical expert from the government in the room, and that leads to a lot of successes in those programs. We're certainly interested in new partnerships as well, so if anyone in the room is interested, get in touch with me.
Great, thanks, Adam. So next I wanted to move on to, and I think we've heard a little bit about this from Jim, talking about sort of the importance of international talent, which brings up this question of workforce. And I think this is something we've talked about for every single Quantum World Congress, right? And something we've identified from the very beginning as something which is sort of an enduring problem for quantum. But here we are a few years in, and it continues to be something that I think is an ongoing discussion that we're thinking about. How do we build the workforce we need? Who do we need for that workforce? What kinds of people do we need? So we'd love to hear, how your agencies are thinking about workforce, how you're working to help, make sure, because I think this is a problem in government, right? We don't have enough skilled workers who are in government. We don't have enough skilled workers in academia. Companies, continue to need people. So how you guys are thinking about this, how your agencies are sort of contributing to building the quantum workforce. And I'm going to start with Adam this time.
Okay. So I unfortunately, I'm here to report the workforce is still a challenge. It has not been solved in the last year. We have a large number of very robust programs that support early career researchers, students, and we have summer internship programs. Any undergraduate, graduate students who'd like to come to NRL for a summer and do research are welcome to get in touch with me. And of course, and postdoctoral appointments as well. And of course, we hope that some of those people come and stay at NRL. Ultimately, that we get to keep the best of the best. But ultimately, those students who come in and work in the quantum workforce, in our labs, they do gain expertise, gain an understanding of how quantum research matters to the Navy. And then if they don't stay with us, they go out into the world and make quantum research a better place for everybody. So that's part of it, part of the story for us, is that those formal programs for workforce development. We also do a lot of, I think, internal workforce development towards quantum as people, we have kind of a bottom-up research model where researchers propose their own research programs and kind of decide what they're going to work on, and they can kind of move into quantum, gain expertise. People who are in adjacent fields will move into quantum and learn about it and become experts. So that does, over time, gradually increase the size of the workforce for the Navy.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, very, very similar. Workforce will always be a challenge for us. So being in the information directorate, working a lot of the different deep technologies, whether it's quantum, AI, cyber, workforce is a challenge for us. But if you look at the broader quantum piece across AFRL, certainly remains a challenge. Similar, very formal programs, internship programs. We love to start students out early, sometimes even high school age, keep bringing them back if things work out, progress them, really get kind of the hooks in early, get them excited about quantum and what it can do in the future. We've had some really neat success stories that have come out of it where people, students came in not knowing anything about quantum, but ended up going on getting graduate degrees in quantum. So ultimately would love to hire those people back, but that's kind of on the internship side. Postdocs, very big for us. I see all the time, we're pulling people in that were postdocs, and it just worked out. We're able to bring them in as well. Quantum adjacent and interdisciplinary is something I think we put a lot of emphasis on as well. That was a great point of how we can pull people in, especially on the computing side for us as we get looking at algorithms. We don't just need quantum physicists coding on our computers we have access to, but we really want we have so many computing problems in the information space. How can those then translate to quantum? What can quantum do there? So we have a lot of formalized trainings where we're able to pull people in pretty quickly and get them excited, or at least thinking about quantum. And then finally, the last piece for us, start them early. I mentioned high school students, but STEM. STEM is huge for us across many different areas. We're partnered with Griffiths Institute locally, which runs the Naval Advancement Center for us, but they also run summer STEM camps across a variety of areas where our folks actually teach those courses. And we have one that we've run for several years now, Quantum Camp, which sells out very instantly, but really great to see kids excited about quantum at the high school age as well.
Yeah, no, that's actually really exciting.
Yeah, you can even make quantum ice cream at the end. So.
Yeah. No, I didn't know you were doing that. That's actually great to hear, actually. Yeah.
So workforce is always going to be a challenge, I think, or at least, but what's I've noticed over the last 3 to 4 years is the competition for postdocs has just ramped up like crazy. You know this being at Maryland.
Huge problem.
And historically, NIST had been in a kind of privileged place where it's like, oh, we really want to come work there, and so we were able to bring in people, but it's gotten so much more competitive, and there's just not enough talent out there. So that's something we need to do. One of the things I should have mentioned earlier about kind of the partnerships, though, but ties into the workforce, is that one of the things that NIST has leveraged is joint institutes with universities. So with CU Boulder, it's over 63 years or something like that. JILA, JQI at University of Maryland is about 20 years old now, I think, and we have QWC as well. So NIST uses that as a conduit to to bring people in. So we have people working there, we have NIST staff embedded at the universities, you know, acting like a professor, if you will, having students, having postdocs. It gets people a taste of the NIST kind of mission, if you will. It gets people aware of it. And many people, Gretchen included until she just left me, came from the Joint Institutes to NIST, and then kind of, it is a good career path. So, and the other piece, which is amazing to see, is how many people in the quantum industry and in different companies have come through one of our labs at some point or another. They were a postdoc, they were a grad student, they were a visiting scientist, whatever. And the proliferation and the cross-pollination, I think, is critical. But I think the solution goes back to what Mike said, is we have to prioritize STEM as a nation. We have to, you know, make it exciting again. I think it's exciting. We all think it's exciting, hopefully. Yep. But make people think that this is a career area that's worth it, because we're gonna need more quantum physicists, but we're gonna need a lot of electrical engineers and other, you know, cryo engineers and all these kind of things to make the entire industry work. And we need to build that up. And I think we can't do that in isolation. We're gonna have to bring in external, you know, foreign talent, but we need to shore up what, you know, our internal pipeline. And that's, you know, that's not within NIST mission per se, but I think that's something that all the government needs to look at.
Great, thanks. No, and as Jim said, I'm incredibly grateful to, you know, I decided to be a physicist some number of years ago that I will not say. The summer after my sophomore year of college, when I somehow found myself as an undergraduate research student at NIST, really had no idea what physics was, had no idea what it meant to be a physicist, and went and, you know, luckily I had a college professor who said, I know this guy, Bill Phillips. You should go work with him this summer, and I had no idea.
He's kind of a smart guy.
He's kind of a smart guy,
famous,
and, you know, I showed up and discovered this was actually something fun, a great place to work. You know, went on and did a postdoc at JILA, and, you know, spent some more time at an institute. So yeah, no, I do think, you know, this is how you bring people into sciences. You bring them into camps, you know, you bring them into summer programs, and they see a path that they didn't even know existed. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I think about science in general. Like, at least for experiment, I'm an experimentalist, or was, before I kind of moved into the dark side of management. But I think getting people early experiences in the lab, you know, turning knobs, breaking things even at times, but figuring out what it's like, that kind of energizes folks and gets them kind of then to do the hard studying and the math and the you know, all that stuff. But kind of having some experiences early on is important.
No, it's incredibly important. I do think a role that all of your agency play, which is incredibly important.
One thing I was going to add, we were talking about this at dinner last night with some representatives, Fairfax County and Maryland, and the economic side is not only getting the kids interested in STEM early on, but getting the parents interested as well, I think is critical, so they can have kind of that support system there as well, that, you know, show them, you know, there's careers in quantum or STEM or whatever it is. And, you know, Jim brought up a great point, you know, it's not just quantum physics, but all the related areas, even down to technician levels and, you know, all the associated fields that make up the quantum ecosystem that we think a lot about.
No, that's a really important point, right? Because often you've got to reach the parents, right? They need to understand that this really is something, you know, they don't need to go into business, they don't need to go into finance. This is a really, you know, bringing them in, seeing that, you know, they belong there too. I think actually, I agree, it makes a big difference, particularly I think in some of the communities that, you know, where, you know, our agencies are located. But yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, well, great. So that brings us to the next question, which this is a little bit directed at Jim, because NIST, you know, we're all here because at this conference because we're really all excited about the promise of quantum, right? But also, of course, you know, always acknowledge the risk that comes with quantum. So I would love to hear a little bit about, you know, in particular NIST, how you guys are, you know, what's been going on these days with PQC, post-quantum cryptography, but also, you know, if there are things that, you know, Mike or Adam, you'd like to add. You know, I know for, you know, your agencies thinking about, you know, the migration to PQC is also really important. So I'd love to start with you, Jim, since NIST plays an incredibly important role in this.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk a little bit about this, but, you know, there's one killer app that we all know for quantum, and unfortunately it breaks encryption. So there's been a long-standing, and I'm happy to report, as everybody knows, last year the first PQC standards, the FIPS, were released, and they're out in the wild now. and there's more on their way. There's some additional ones coming up. And for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been on this stage, or different ones, talking about how industry needed to be doing an inventory of their encryption throughout, their infrastructure, because it's all going to need to be improved or upgraded, and just having that. So hopefully folks have done that. Hopefully folks have a handle on where they're at. The big piece now is really the implementation. And the last big encryption change, people have told me it was 8 to 10 years for it really to get end to end, for really the full adoption. So we want to see if we can do better than that and how we do that. And that's working with companies. I mean, NIST will, with the international partners, defined the standard, but now companies need to turn that into products that can be employed across our networks. And that's where we're at. We're working with them, NIST is working with them, but really that's a ecosystem challenge, and that it's not just, we can say by this date we're gonna deprecate these different things, but it's up to the community to really move forward and get to where we need to be.
Great.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. Air Force, we rely on what NIST does, and then it's a great point on the products, and then those products get certified by NSA before they can go into any of our networks or systems. But for those who wonder, no, we don't do PQC at AFRL. We leave it up to the pros.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I didn't know too much about what we were doing in PQC, so I asked the head of our IT division, and he told me. So we are in fact, building out PQC in certain, high assurance Navy crypto systems, and there's a lot of NRL activity in PQC. But the thing he told me that I had not internalized before was that actually rolling out PQC for the Navy is quite complex.
Yes.
Heterogeneous platforms, and it's quite challenging. There's a job ahead of us.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things where I think, the warfighters, have some of the most challenge. Like, I have an iPhone. Everybody's got a whatever laptop, and those things are kind of a uniform platforms, or relatively. But some of the different systems you guys have on your ships or on your planes and things like that are going to be a real challenge. And I should have said, just because we got like another minute, obviously, you have the inventory, and then you need to prioritize what's your most critical system. Yeah. What has data of enduring value? Because we're still not there that things are going to be decrypted, but what has enduring value that you wouldn't want to even have someone know it 10 years from now? And that's where you need to prioritize. But that's just, how people should be thinking about it.
Yeah, no, totally. And, Adam, like you, a few years ago, I knew nothing about post-quantum cryptography, because as I like to say now, it has quantum in the name, but it's totally classical, right?
You're right.
But no, I remember the first time I sat down with Matt Scholl at NIST, and he gave me a primer, and him just going through the list of things that I had never considered are going to have to be migrated and upgraded, and things that have maybe been deployed, right? And yes, we can update our browsers very quickly, right? But then how do we trickle down? And yes, do I care if somebody cracks my fridge? No, but there's a lot of other things. So, but yeah, well, thank you guys so much for joining today. It's great to see you all, and glad you could join us here. And thank you to the audience.